Oh, hi! Sometimes doing botanical paintings means finding an interesting angle on a subject, and that means getting into some weird positions.
Okay, I'll admit I haven't actually yet found a real need to hang upside down while sketching, but botanical art has completely transformed how I see, look at, and appreciate the world. If you stick around to the end, I will show you just how ridiculous that hanging shot actually was. Anyway, let's back up. Hi, my name is Leanne Gold, and I am extremely nerdy about painting watercolor plants. So, of course, when my friend Lana from Lana Goes Art invited me to participate in a botanical art focused YouTube collaboration, I was so excited. In this video, I'll share my process from start to finish of painting this Cyprepedium acaule. This is the pink lady slipper orchid. From finding my subject on a camping trip to on-location sketching, photographing, and note-taking, all the way through painting the finished piece. And I'll use the example of these experiences to explain how my botanical art practice has changed my perception of the world and how it can change yours too. First, let's start with some definitions. While there are various different types and styles of botanical art, and I think some substantial room for disruption and new techniques and perspectives, botanical art is generally understood to be different from broader floral or still life painting. Botanical art places some importance and emphasis on scientific accuracy, whereas in other art forms, artists may be most concerned with aesthetics or an emotional impact. The botanical artist is both artist and scientist, using the medium of art to understand, record, and communicate facts, scientific facts about their subject. Now, right from the start, this influences how I approach my potential subjects and how I look at the world. Whereas the average hiker will see and remember a trail primarily at their eye level, something like 1.5 meters or 5 feet. Remembering and photographing some large-scale geological landmarks, hoping for a glimpse of some large or colorful wildlife, but otherwise letting the surroundings just blur together. My approach as a botanical artist is different. Scrambling over obstacles or lying down to get a closer look at my subjects, I see entire ecosystems that most people would pass right by. I found my subject for this video, the pink lady slippers orchid, on a hike at Sleeping Giant Provincial Park outside of Thunder Bay, Ontario. The trail I chose that day was the Thunder Bay Bogs Trail, which runs across mostly rocky flatlands, but it's surrounded by boggy areas on either side of the trail. These boggy areas are, as you could expect, mosquito central. I had chosen this trail because the trail guide suggested that this was the spot to find sarracenias, or pitcher plants. Pitcher plants are carnivorous, thriving in swampy areas and pine barrens where they might not have the same access to nutrients as other plants. Sarracenias use their carnivorous nature to their benefit by trapping insects from the environment and converting them into energy and food. While orchids are not carnivorous, they do have many adaptations that suit them to the same pine barrens and swampy environments of eastern Canada. In order to survive and reproduce, the pink lady slipper orchid interacts, it forms an association with a fungus in the soil from the Rhizoctonia genus. The pink lady slipper seeds, they require threads of the fungus to break open the seed and attach to it in order for the seed to germinate. Early in the orchid's life cycle, the fungus will pass on food and nutrients to the seed. Once the plant is a little bit older and producing most of its own nutrients, the fungus will start extracting nutrients from the orchid's roots. This type of mutually beneficial relationship between two different species is called symbiosis. Very nearly all orchids, and certainly all of the Cyprepedium genus, require fungal symbiotes to reproduce and thrive in their environments. Whether I'm out on a hike at some exciting wild place or just walking around my urban neighborhood at home, I tend to notice the plants around me when they flower, what their leaf patterns are like. Similarities between plants, both related and unrelated. Potential subjects and features of interest are everywhere. Botanical art's focus on scientific accuracy means it's extra important to really observe your subjects. While artists from all fields will tout the benefits of painting from life, and I really do believe that that is a great practice for all artists, I do think that botanical art requires something a little bit extra. While a quick photo, even a hazy memory, may be enough to create a compelling composition of a landscape, the scientific accuracy that is expected in botanical art means that we really do need to take a close look at our subjects from various different angles. Our memories and even photo references play tricks on us. Areas are obscured, and we can only guess at how things are connected. My botanical art practice has taught me to appreciate live subjects, to appreciate real life in front of me more than anything else. I'm not just willing to, I'm thrilled to be out in nature, lying down to get the closest look from all possible angles at an orchid in its natural environment. In these sketching sessions, I try to collect as much information as I can through various different methods, whether that is photographs, videos, sketches, and notes. I try to get all the information that I can in order to bring it back to my studio and turn it into a finished piece. This practice of deep observation and recording my observations not only creates a record, a reference for me to use later in the studio in the form of pictures, sketches, and notes, but it also is a powerful force for strengthening my mental model and remembering things that otherwise I may have forgotten. Back in my studio, I do use the references I created, but I also use my memories to guide how I use my references. My memories help me search my references for key elements and guide what features I think are important to include in my painting. For this painting, I'm using my Roman Schmal Aquarius Wild Curiosity palette. That's my curated palette of 12 colors that I chose from Roman Schmal's Aquarius's line. You can find the link to that down in the description below. For my sketching trip, I took an expanded version of this palette. I will link the video up above, And for the finished painting, I used the unexpanded palette, except I added a pan of Perylene Violet PV29, as well as towards the end I used some titanium white gouache to mix in with some of my colors to add some of the trichome or hairy texture on the stems and sepals of the orchid. Given that this is my contribution for a collaboration that focuses on botanical art, I did want to create this piece with a fairly traditional botanical art aesthetic. I wanted to focus on the structure and growth habit of Cyprepedium acaule, the pink lady slipper orchid. I decided to paint 3 individual flowers. This way I could show different angles of the flower and share a better understanding of how that flower is structured. While most orchids in the Cyprepedium genus of slipper orchids have a sort of cup shape at the bottom, the pink lady slipper orchid or moccasin orchid differs in that it has a slit opening up the middle of that cup. This slit opening allows large pollinators such as bumblebees to push their way into the cup where they can pollinate the flower. The showy white or pink flowers act as beacons to potential pollinators. However, this is some false advertising because Cyprepedium acaule does not offer any valuable nectar to pollinators such as bumblebees. So after a few attempts, the bees tend to learn that these flowers are not valuable nectar sources. This, combined with the orchid seeds requiring a fungal symbiote to even germinate, means that pink lady slipper orchids, Cyprepedium acaule, tend to depend on asexual rather than sexual reproduction. They form colonies, spreading via their roots into clumps or clusters. Each individual plant technically only has 1 flower stalk and 2 leaves. However, in a larger clump, you'll have a large sort of rosette pattern of multiple plants. Another adaptation to living in low nutrition environments is that the pink lady slipper orchid is very slow growing, reaching a maximum size between 6 and 15 inches or 15 to 40 centimeters. Cyprepedium acaule takes several years to reach maturity. Growing in a range with ground that has hard freezes, the Cyprepedium acaule orchid dies back to the ground, regrowing every year, making it a herbaceous perennial. Its delicate-looking flowers are surprisingly long-lasting, with a flowering period between May and July of every year. The flowers range between a light pink to a deep, bright magenta, and very occasionally all white. The flower cups, especially in lighter pink individuals, often have a darker pink veining pattern. While I found this less obvious in my references, in person I had this deep impression of the cups feeling sort of like a paper lantern. This impression was heightened by the combination with the very papery sort of crinkled sepals. While I do not have any formal training in botany or herbalism, I have found that my interest in botanical art has translated into an interest and a growing bank of knowledge of plant identification and function. Growing up super urban, I didn't really have a lot of knowledge of plant identification or function at all. Over the past several years, my interest in botanical art has sparked an interest in gardening, in foraging. And without ever outright setting my mind to it or intending to learn about them, I've gotten to the point where most plants I run into, whether at home or on travels, I can very quickly identify. I've been blown away by how many of the so-called weeds and wild plants around us are edible or have medicinal uses. While rarely collected anymore due to dwindling habitat and a very long, slow life cycle, the roots of Cyprepedium acaule have a long tradition as a medicinal plant in Anishinaabe culture. The pink lady slipper orchid or moccasin flower is known as makazinkawe in Anishinaabewin. Teas and tinctures made of the root of this plant have been used to treat menstrual disorders, nervousness, tooth pain, muscle spasms, and neuralgia. In the 18th and early 19th century, it was used by early European settlers as a replacement for the European valerian root. Finishing up this painting, I reflected on some of the surprising elements that I've found I pay a lot more attention to since starting my botanical art journey. I'm not sure in the past I would have noticed the fine hairs on the stem and the sepals of this flower, but they were so obvious to me when I was sketching. So I had to include them. I feel so privileged that my art practice has allowed me to appreciate the world in these new ways. I would like to encourage you to try botanical art. Try painting plants as a way of connecting with and understanding the world. And also, I'd love to hear from you what you do in your life, different activities that you have that you think changed your perspective. I probably don't need more hobbies, but I would definitely appreciate some insight into different ways I can deepen my understanding and appreciation of the world. So let me know down in the comments below what you do that has helped you change your perspective. Oh, by the way, about that hanging upside down, I was actually on a playground. Here's some more of that clip. But hey, if I ever do need to hang upside down to get a good view of one of my botanical art subjects, I am so ready. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any idea of where that would actually be useful. If you would like the Cyprepedium acaule Pink Lady Slipper Orchid painting that I painted in this video, it is available on my web shop down below. I've left links. Also, just a reminder that I still have my studio reboot sale going on, so I have a number of different pieces that don't fit into any other collection from the past few years that I am selling at very, very discounted prices. Again, links down in the description below. If you'd like to see more fantastic botanical art content, first of all, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so that you'll be notified when my next video comes out, because I do botanical art all the time. But also, on the screen is a link to the playlist for all of the other videos in this collaboration, so you can check out some wonderful other artists on YouTube who have made botanical art videos this week. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.